I would describe my work in general as context responsive. So I use a whole lot of different mediums to produce responses to different circumstances. The driving force of my practice is just following my nose, and as soon as I name or articulate a fundamental theme, it kind of dissolves in my hands. Having said that, I guess because I did training in performance and acting, the pervasive sense of the moment, so like any given moment and the thickness of that moment, the richness of that moment really is the centre from which all my work comes out of. So whether that moment is my moment as an artist or the viewer's moment, I'm really interested in interrogating its qualities. I'm also really interested in language and the transposition of language and how it has different meanings in different contexts. A major theme I've dealt with is the way the viewer at a gallery or the visitor to an art gallery or a participant occupies the gallery space. So the way they move about the gallery, the way they feel, how all the conditions of that space, so political conditions, kind of power plays, architectural conditions, and also cultural conditions are embodied in the viewer at the moment of apprehension of the artwork. So I'm really interested in making explicit that experience in my work. I don't think I ever chose to become an artist. I did lots of things before I decided to go to art school. And I think in the end I just felt like all my activities only fitted into the world of art. So I studied performance studies and philosophy, and then I studied acting, and then finally I did painting at Sydney College of the Arts. I've inherited a lot of things from both my parents, and sometimes they're really frustrating things, like my dad's how he treats all his artwork like crap and just throws it around, and so I've really inherited that lack of reverence for the art object. A lot of my early work was really dominated by the notion of collaboration. So when I was collaborating, I was working with a performer and writer called Brian Fuada as Wrong Solo, and we still work together, but much less this year. There was something about collaboration which also defied kind of notions of authorship and ego that I really liked. In my context-responsive work, I use a lot of different types of mediums. One of the main ones is Microsoft PowerPoint, so I do a lot of very basic, primitive animations. I do kind of propositional text statements, text-based wall works, signages, very subtle spatial interventions. So one work I've been working on a couple of times is just putting a yellow line on the floor. And performance and conversation is a big part of my practice. I think my process varies according to which project I'm working on at the time. I have a humming studio practice, which is kind of based on research and thinking that kind of goes along the whole time. If I am given a project, there's a period where I'm just thinking about it and really questioning it, and often then I rebel against it and think it's a really stupid proposition that someone's given me, and then I come around to it. So there's a lot of intellectual wrestling going on. And then eventually something articulates itself. So a sentence becomes crystal clear, or a word or an image becomes crystal clear out of nowhere. So that first period might be 2 months or 3 months, or sometimes even 2 days. And then I think about the best way to articulate that. And that usually is the path of least resistance. I'm really interested in an economy of means. So once I know what image or idea I'm making, I just want to execute that in the easiest way possible. Making that happen is a process of either dealing with suppliers or, for instance, sign writers or fabricators, or me making the object myself. In that process, that final stage where the object or the image is being materialised, that is often also the most exciting stage because you make new discoveries that you don't expect. So something in the act of doing, I really think, awakens your intellect again, and often it's in that stage where you make the biggest discoveries. If I'm doing an exhibition in a gallery, I'm interested in exploiting the resources that gallery has to offer, or the limitations. So I'm interested in the idea of bringing as little as possible physical to that gallery, which I guess is why I use things like vinyl or portable things, projections, things like that. I source my materials from just general like everyday kind of supplies of signs and paper, cardboard. The Contemporary Art Archive at the MCA is an archive of performance-based works and documents that has recently been expanded, and I think the most recent expansion was Glenn Barclay's initiative, who's a curator at the MCA. And he invited me to contribute documents of my work that hadn't necessarily been shown, or like with the peripheral activities of me as an artist in performance. So works I made with Brian as Wrong Solo, and also like all the paraphernalia around those, so like the advertising brochures and these strange video montages I make out of the documentation. And I also contributed my whole set of PowerPoint presentations, one of which is playing here. This is A Planet with Two Suns. And a whole lot of printed matter that was just floating around the world. So this was a project called Headliners, which was a series of 8 consecutive full-page advertisements, or like headlines in the Weekly Advertiser. They came out of conversations I had each night with a local from Horsham. I advertised in the paper for non-newsworthy subjects. So they just told me about their daily life, and I generated a headline at the deadline of each week. So that kind of stuff went into the archive. It was really amazing because it was an opportunity for me to consolidate and to a point articulate how these activities fed into my practice at large, and also feel very safe that all these strange objects and digital files that I would have annihilated with my rough and ready approach have all been put away safely somewhere. The viewer and the gallery environment are both like major concerns in all my work. Often I work from project to project, so I know what gallery or what space I'm working in, so that kind of shapes the project I do. It's like the context and the viewer's experience is almost the thing that drives my work, the generative principle that there's going to be a body in a space, in some way engaging with the space, either with their eyes or their body or their ears. So in terms of how I consider the viewer in the gallery environment, I'm very interested in making very small spatial interventions that bring the viewer's awareness and attention to particular aspects of their experience in the gallery. It might be a change in the lighting, or even it might be other people in the room occupied in an activity. I'm really interested in that being an ambiguous space. So even if it seems like a propositional or directive text, like for instance, do not cross the yellow line, or we all walk out in the end, I want there to be space for that not to be one thing or another. Like it could be an instruction, but it also could be a meditation. Humans bring a lot of meaning to every single thing they look at and every single thing they engage with. We are like complicated, rich meaning carriers. And I think that's why my interest is doing these quite minimal interventions, or having an economy of means. Really, my intention is to open up the space for the complexity of the situation, the viewer, and my object to kind of really be illuminated and bounce off each other. It's like I'm offering these trigger points, it's an offer, and that's kind of as far as I can go as an artist. So whatever meaning the viewer brings to the work is also like an offering and a gift, and yeah, I'm happy for them to bring whichever meaning they would like. I've always found inspiration in art historical images, images from fashion, like from the 20th century avant-garde. For a number of years now, a book that my grandmother gave me called the Lucia Personality Test has been a really central focus of my practice. He was a Swiss psychologist and he developed a personality test based on the ordering of colours, and that has just continued to reappear in my work as a kind of generative tool. To follow your nose and have a real conviction about your intuition is the most valuable skill, and that intuition often goes against trends or against what your peers think of you, and often doesn't have a kind of direct relationship with how successful or unsuccessful, depending on silly qualifiers of success you are. So it's really challenging to be able to stay true to that intuition. And I guess that's also because I don't want to make art that's like immediately identifiable as art. I'm interested in making things that we don't really know what they are yet, not even I know what they are. So I guess very like diagonally enough, you have to have courage as well.